Look, Magic's gotten too stressful lately for me. So, instead, I want to talk about something a little bit more low pressure. Like, I don't know, Tiddlywinks. Tiddlywinks. Who doesn't like the relaxation of squapping a wink just perfectly so it pots your opponent's field? Just nothing but boondock squidges and flicking little plastic discs on top of each other. Ah, the good old days, my friend. The good old days. Now, throw $1 million prize in there, and make it just a little bit sexier to appeal to the college demographic, and suddenly, 20-something whelps with an ego the size of Moldovia, and too damn much time on their hands come a-running. They are determined to be the tiddly master. Now your friendly little game of winks is awash in the sewage of idiot kids who spent 30 hours mastering that perfect tiddly shot. They're even cheating, because now they're sanding off the edges of their tiddly squidger thingy to get an unlicensed edge. And they're trash-talking. That's right. You're sitting down across the tables at the Tiddlywinks World Championships, and there's some guy sitting there, and he's going, "You think you know Tiddlywinks? You don't know Tiddlywinks, you I'm going to take you down. I'm the Tiddly Master, fool! The Tiddly Master!" See, there's a formula. Fun plus money equals idiots. And nobody in Magic epitomizes that competitive spirit better than Tom LaPille. Now, let me say that I like Tom LaPille, even if I'm not really sure how to pronounce his name. In fact, I'm directly responsible for him being on our site. I read his awesome blog, and I thundered, "This Tom LaPille! I must have him! Fetch him for me!" And Pete and Craig made it happen. He started writing for our site, he stopped writing for his blog, and in fact, Tom has exceeded my expectations. He's one of the best writers on StarCityGames.com today, and a lot of people tune in to hear what he has to say. And he's also willing to share his bozo mistakes with the world, which is comparatively rare in a Magic author. But, well, Tom's a little cutthroat. It's not that Tom breaks the rules. What he does, at least as he describes them in his articles, are perfectly legal. But they are perfectly legal, in the sense that Tom figures out exactly where that line between not breaking the law and cheating is, and then he does a furious little tightrope walk up and down on that line while the judges applaud. If Tom can trick you legally, he will. If Tom can get a judge to screw you, he absolutely will. And it's good to have a Tom writing for us, because if you're at a PTQ, you need to remember, there are Toms out there. Let me digress for a minute and say that one of the most amusing things I've heard lately was when someone referred to Guitar Hero as fun. And Guitar Hero is fun, as long as you stay on medium. The minute you commit to the expert track, which requires you to have hyperactive snakes for fingers and a supercomputer for a brain, it goes something like this.
Nobody can do this! Nobody can do this!
Eventually, you're going to beat that song. But you're only going to do it after you bomb out 70 or 80 billion times. On the upper levels of Guitar Hero, it's quote-unquote fun because you eventually triumph, but the victory itself is what's sweet. The actual game? Well, it's like flossing with barbed wire that's been soaked in cow urine. See, every video game, when you get down to it seriously, involves losing, until you eventually discover what works, and then you get that candy heroin center of purest win. It's like learning how to wipe your butt with Brillo pads. It's painful, but eventually you can feel cocky because you've learned the secret. A PTQ is one big Brillo padded butt wipe. PTQs are not, as we understand it, fun. They are about attaining victory, which is an entirely different thing altogether. Victory involves a lot of 5-2 heartbreakers, and a whole splash of, "God, it was so damn close!" And for someone like Tom to go, "I will do anything legal to win this tournament," well, that's exactly what PTQs are about. They're about every level of legal competition, from Jedi mind tricks to actual, skill. Look in the judge's rulebook, and you're going to find hundreds of pages devoted to card rulings and tiebreakers, but a scant handful of paragraphs devoted to nice. And there is a reason for that. But the number of folks who actually write about how they want to destroy you at a PTQ are reasonably small. Why? Because people hate them. The Magic community will dogpile these folks in the forums, but strangely enough, a bunch of internet complaints do not cause an entire cast of players to wink out of existence. Those take-it-all players may make your day miserable, but they do attend PTQs, and they attend them in numbers large enough that you're likely to run into them once in a while. Look, if victory went to the nice guys, Mr. Rogers would be tap dancing on Mike Tyson's grave right now. You have to remember that you don't win Magic games by being pleasant. You win them through skill and observation. And Tom LaPille reminds us that it's not just about observing the cards, but you have to watch your opponent. Because there are people with Tom's mindset, and some of them, they do cheat. In a way, that's actually pretty generous of him. Tom is willing to walk up there and be the punching bag for the whole Magic community. He represents a whole group of players who the Magic world never ever wants to face at a tournament. And he may be a nice guy in real life, but I know that if I ever meet him at a tournament, he's going to be my enemy. And remembering that you have enemies at a PTQ isn't something that's mentioned often enough. In Tom's own way, he's the bravest and most honest writer we have. But that begs the question. Do I agree with Tom? No! He holds up Mike Long as a fine example of mind trickery, but Mike Long last won back sometime when Glenn Miller was at the top of the charts, and we were all very concerned about beating the Kaiser. No, wait, I lie. Mike Long was a fabulous Flashmaster back when Wizards didn't really care if you cheated. Think about that. The judges came in. Wizards started swinging that banhammer, and Mike Long just sort of vanished. Wonder why that is. But even Mike Long aside, you gotta look at the numbers. Frankly, if this whole Jedi mind trick thing was so awesome, you'd expect to see it used a lot at the Pro Tour level. But you really don't. I'm sure that whole rules thing might be effective on the PTQ level, but what isn't? PTQs are where your opponent's frequently less clueless than a halibut. When you get to the upper level skills, what matters is, gameplay. Look, I'm not saying that Jedi mind tricks don't win games. What I am saying is that it takes a lot of practice learning how to work those shifty angles, and all that time you spent looking for the perfect moment to run the sting on your opponent might be better spent on actually, playing the cards. Let's be honest. I made my reputation writing about politics and multiplayer. I specifically devoted myself to reading people and playing them off against each other and doing all sorts of dreadful maneuvers. So it's kind of relevant when I, Mr. Mind Trick, say that politics is maybe 10% of what wins the game in multiplayer. And if it's 10% there, what's the slice in duels? Probably a lot less. But even if it was 90%, even if it won the game 100% of the time, I'd have to say that this kind of stuff is toxic to the soul. People will tell you, oh, I can be a total jerk when I have my game face on, but that's not really me. But jackassery is like dioxin. It seeps through the walls. It drips into your subconscious. It makes you a little jerky all the time. And there's always that lurking danger that you might someday decide to say, screw the judges, and start actually cheating. When you're tap dancing up and down that line, it's real easy to slip off to the dark side without even noticing. And regardless, what goes around comes around. Someday you're going to need someone to scoop to you to make that top 8, or to lend you the cards for that deck you need. And they might do that if you're a nice guy, but if you're the butt munch humiliated them 3 weeks ago, forget about it. Tom's writings are incredibly worthwhile. He really is trying to make you better at Magic, and he's trying to show you by looking at the game through his eyes. But at the same time, his viewpoint also serves as a warning about the sort of things that you can lose along the way. I mean, maybe it's just my oh-so-non-competitive spirit speaking, but winning a game isn't worth all of the stress you endure and the anguish you deal out in the process. I mean, Magic, at its heart, it should be for fun. Like Tiddlywinks, mother...